going back to Genesis or Bereshit, and we'll be in the 50th chapter, and we'll hear it out of one rendition, and then I'll be sharing out of another. Give an ear. That's fine. Yes, thank you, Al. And Joseph fell upon his father's face and wept upon him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father, and the physicians embalmed Israel. And 40 days were fulfilled for him, for so are fulfilled the days of those which are embalmed. And the Egyptians mourned for him 70 days. And when the days of his mourning were past, Joseph spake unto the house of Pharaoh, saying, If now I have found grace in your eyes, speak, I pray you, in the ears of Pharaoh, saying, My father made me swear, saying, Lo, I die in my grave which I have digged for me in the land of Canaan. There shalt thou bury me. Now therefore let me go up, I pray thee, and bury my father, and I will come again. And Pharaoh said, Go up and bury thy father according as he made thee swear. And Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Egypt, and all the house of Joseph and his brethren and his father's house. Only their little ones and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Goshen. And there went up with him both chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company. And they came to the threshold of Atad, which is beyond Jordan, and there they mourned with a great and very sore lamentation. And he made mourning for his father 7 days. And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning in the floor of Atad, they said, This is a grievous mourning to the Egyptians, wherefore the name of it is called Abel Mizraim, which is beyond Jordan. And his sons did unto him according as he commanded them. For his sons carried him into the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which Abraham brought with the field for a possession of a burying place of Ephraim the Hittite before Mamre. And Joseph returned into Egypt, he and his brethren, and all that went up with him to bury his father, after he had buried his father. And when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, Joseph will peradventure hate us, and will certainly requite us all the evil we did unto him. And they sent a messenger unto Joseph, saying, Thy father did command thee before he died, saying, So shall ye say unto Joseph, Forgive, I pray thee now, the trespass of thy brethren and their sin, for they did unto thee evil. And now we pray thee, forgive the trespass of the servants of God, of thy father. And Joseph wept when they spake unto him. And his brothers his brethren also went and fell down before his face. And said, Behold, we be thy servants. And Joseph said unto them, Fear not, for am I in the place of God? But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. Now therefore, fear ye not, I will nourish you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spake kindly unto them. And Joseph dwelt in Egypt, he and his father's house, and Joseph lived 110 years. And Joseph saw Ephraim's children of the third generation, the children of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were brought upon Joseph's knees. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I die, and God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land unto the land which he sware unto Abraham, Isaac, and to Jacob. And Joseph took an oath of the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry up my bones from hence. So Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt. I want to say to you this morning, be encouraged, because I know this has been a long series on family dynamics. But in our reading and rehashing and revisiting, we have seen in our own families where there may have been discord, disagreement, things said in anger, things said even sometimes bordering on maybe even hate. But I would submit to you that family is important to the Most High. And it would behoove all of us that desire to live by his instruction to shore up any relations that we can. You see, saints, in following his instructions, it's what draws people to you. It's not about where you go to worship. It's not about who your pastor or your teacher or who you get a word from. It's not about any of that stuff. People are drawn to you because you're demonstrating by your walk that you can follow instruction. And in the days in which we are about to embark upon, a lot of people are confused. A lot of people are searching for answers. And, you know, I'm not saying that we have all the answers, because we don't. We just happen to serve someone that does have all the answers. And in our quest to be followers of his instructions. Many people will come to you and want to have a few minutes of your time if you're willing to spare. See, sometimes when they approach us, it's not always about a financial matter. Many of us, as we rehash our lives, we realize, we see where we went left when maybe we should have went right. We see where when we said yes, we should have said no, and when we said no, we should have said yes. And, sometimes we get a little troubled by it, but then we remember that he has forgiven us. Because the more we rehash and rehearse after rereading or meditating on the instructions, we begin to realize as we're maturing that these things sometimes are brought back to our remembrance because it's showing us a little bit of growth. Yes, we lament and we go, man, how could I have been so foolish? How could I have been so blind? For a lot of us, our youth gave us an air of invincibility, and that we in our youth felt that we could overcome anything. And, many of us that have reached the status of some might call senior or the gray hair, you take survey, and you have an honest moment. You have an honest moment while you're following the instruction. Because as we continue to follow the instruction, we begin to perfect our walk. And when I use the term perfect our walk, I don't mean that we will walk as Yeshua did, but that we're growing, we're maturing. You see, Joseph and his brothers, they had made peace, remember? You all know the story. When he sent them back to get his father, and remember, I kept pointing out, he said, listen, when you go, don't argue among yourselves. And he said that for a reason, and we went over that, and I'm not going to go over that again, but I'm bringing this up because, see, sometimes we say to one another, we say, hey, I forgive you, or, that's in the past, and, hey, let's move on. And there's agreement there. And maybe at that moment, both hearts are relieved. And then we get back into our daily lives. But then another event takes place. Again, life begins to happen. And maybe there's something that transpires that now has us thinking, did they really forgive me? Or did I really forgive them? You might see that person, and all of a sudden, something, you feel vexed, and you're saying, wait a minute, hold it. That was over. That's been hashed out. And the other person, I don't know, they may have noticed nothing, but something's going on. And if you were the one that did the forgiving, you begin to ask yourself, did I really forgive them? Because why am I feeling this way? And I'm here to tell you, folks, that in the coming days, we need to learn how, and I'm speaking particularly to my lovely sisters. In the coming days, learn to trust your emotions less. In the coming months, work on, and when I say work on, I'm not saying that there's a deficiency. I'm saying that often our emotions and our feelings trick us. They deceive us. You see, Joseph's brothers, when Israel was embalmed and buried, they couldn't shake what they had done to their brother. And remember now, I gave a little synopsis that yes, they were somewhat jealous of Joseph, but Joseph, as a lot of us sometimes, when we have interaction with the Most High, we're so excited, and I mean, we do that nowadays. If somebody shares something with you that was given to them by the Most High, we get excited, and sometimes we might jump the gun, so to speak. Because if we listen carefully, sometimes it doesn't mean tomorrow this will happen. And I'm not saying this as one in some type of authority, because he didn't ask me what I thought about this. This is what I have gathered from just studying and reading and really looking at this thing about Joseph and his brothers, the interaction, because I have brothers. But this is what I have come to, that sometimes when you are given a directive, sometimes when you're given a word, it's contingent upon us continuing to follow instructions. Not to get too high, not to get too low, but continue to follow the instructions, because oftentimes, if we stop following the instructions, then perhaps this thing may not come to pass. And so, getting back to this thing, when his brothers begin to say, hey man, he's, and I'm paraphrasing, he's going to pay us back. But if you remember earlier, he said, hey, listen, I forgive you. Now, he did list, as brothers do, he listed some of this stuff, the main stuff anyway. Then he said, but I forgive you, And they were relieved. And think about this too. I kept alluding back to the conversation that they had to have with their father after they had told their father, oh man, a wild animal just tore him to shreds or whatever, or either he was in a pit or whatever. You remember, whatever they told him, they made Jacob feel like, man, he ain't coming back. And then they had to go back and tell him, yes, he's alive. And, of course, in the Bible, he was overjoyed and everything, but again, he remembered what his sons had told him. Wait a minute. Now again, it doesn't give that account here in the scriptures, but again, remember, these are not superheroes. These are people. So the same type family dynamics that were going on then are still going on today in our families. And so what I'm saying is, listen, sometimes we have to have some odd conversations. But it's imperative that we have them. And sometimes we may not be able to. We may not be able to resolve it. But as a follower of Torah, we have to get our hearts right concerning that matter. I don't know what that matter is. There may not be a matter, and that's wonderful. But it is incumbent upon each one of us that are trying to live a life whereby we are demonstrating to the Most High that I choose to follow your way with how I'm living. And so when the injustices come, when people misunderstand, it's not easy. And some of us, the way we're built, we might lash out when we know we shouldn't. But in this thing about following instructions, see, when people come to us, and right now I really want to zero in on family members. When they come to us, if we can't be real with other people, we got to be real with family. We got some of the same blood running through our veins. We are part of a legacy. Now, I know some horrific things have happened in some families, and some things can't be worked out. But what I'm getting at is, in our quest to demonstrate to our Creator that I choose to follow your instructions, even when I don't get it right, which is often. If we can't have a real conversation with our family, how can we do this with one another? Just something to think about. And now, I'm not saying that you can't. But this hour is a time where, folks, we're going to need our families, and we're going to need some people that's outside our families. Let's review a little bit. This is out of a different translation. In 50:14 it says, "Then after burying his father, Joseph returned to Egypt, he and his brothers, and all who had gone up with him to bury his father." Here's the part I want to get to. Realizing that their father was dead, Joseph's brothers said, "Joseph may hate us now and pay us back in full for all the suffering we caused him." Let me read that again. Joseph may hate us now and pay us back in full for all the suffering we caused him. So they sent a message to Joseph, which said, "Your father gave this order before he died. Say to Joseph, I beg you now, please forgive your brother's crime and wickedness in doing you harm. Did we hear what the brothers said? In other words, they were saying, the message said, hey, Pop said, forgive us. See, because he forgave them for telling them a lie about Joseph. Think about the anguish. Think about how his heart was torn. And then think about again, see now, remember, Joseph sometimes brothers mess with each other. Remember when he had that stuff put in, no, that was the third time. The second time was when he asked about Benjamin, his replacement. Remember I said Benjamin was Joseph's replacement, so to speak, from Joseph's perspective. And the brothers, you know, and I said sometimes, saints, we talk too much, we tell too much. And sometimes, and particularly in our culture, we tend to, things that we plan to do, we broadcast it too soon. Some stuff, keep it to yourself. The time to talk about it is after it's done. Because see, I submit to you, everybody that's standing in the group that's cheering you on is not for you. Let me say that again. Everybody that's in your particular house of worship, that smile in your face, hug your neck, tell you they love you, is not necessarily for you. Be encouraged, please. Your father gave this order before he died. Say to Joseph, I beg you now, please forgive your brother's crime and wickedness in doing you harm. So now we beg of you, forgive the crime of the servants of God, of your father. In other words, forgive us because our Father, your Father, and my Father asked you to forgive us. And you love your Father as we loved our Father. We lied to our Father about you. He forgave us. Will you forgive us? You say, well, Barry, all of that wasn't in the, yeah, no, it wasn't in the scriptures. But again, I submit to you, these type of conversations happen in families all over. Some of us shy away from uncomfortable conversations. Some of us get overly emotional rather than discuss it. But once again, I submit to you, learn to control your emotions and stop letting your feelings be the predominant or determining factor in decisions that you make in your life. They will deceive you. So they sent a message to Joseph saying, your father gave this order before he died. Say to Joseph, I beg you now. Please forgive your brother's crime and wickedness in doing you harm. So now we beg of you, forgive the crime of the servants of the God of your father. Joseph wept when they spoke to him, and his brothers too came, prostrated themselves before him, and said, here we are your slaves. And now I'm going to take you back to remember when he had the dream, and he told his brothers, he said, your sheaves was bowing to my sheaves. And, one of them was like, who you think you are? Man, ain't nobody going to bow to. Remember, brothers talk stuff to each other. And I don't know if sisters do or not, but brothers talk stuff to one another. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's what we do. And then listen at this. He says, here we are your slaves. But then listen. But Joseph said to them, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You meant to do me harm, but God meant it for good, so that it would come about as it is today, with many people's lives being saved. See, a lot of times, folks, from our vantage point, a lot of times when things happen to us in life that are bitter and unpleasant, we're like, we ask the Most High, why? Well, I can't put that on you. When things are bitter and ugly and I'm not having any fun, I say, man, this is bitter. Listen to how I say it. Now, how long are we going to have to endure this? And I would imagine he said, I'm fine. You the one suffering. In following instructions, you do get to ask questions. And I'm learning to do that more. But because of some earlier episodes, I guess some questions I shy away from asking, but it doesn't do any good because if I don't ask them out verbally, he can read my very thoughts anyway, and a lot of times I go, why is this happening? You meant to do me harm, but God meant it for good, so that it would come about as it is today, with many people's lives being saved. See, another time when something bad happens, we get self-centered. We start focusing in on, oh my God, this is awful, this is terrible. And it is. It's no fun. It's no fun. But sometimes in following the instructions, I'm sharing something here with you. And again, this is no great revelation from myself. This is just something that I've experienced and many of you have experienced. Sometimes in our uncomfortableness, other people are still observing, and they know you to be a person that's trying to do the right thing. And another way of saying that, you're a person that's trying to follow the instructions of the Most High. And most of us do a pretty good job when the sun is shining. Most of us do a pretty good job when we go to the job and they let us work and they're going to give us a check on payday. But when that scheduling starts getting disrupted, that business that you put everything you had in to make a go of it, and it's going, are you going to still follow instructions if it go under? See, saints, people are always watching, and what we're trying to do is we're not following instructions because people are watching. We're following instructions because we know it's good for us. It's best for us. Truly with him, it really is his way, or you can have the highway. And that highway is full of misery. So continue to follow the instruction. You meant to do harm, but God meant it for good, so that it would come as it is today, with many people's lives being saved. Remember, he interpreted, hey, 7 years of feast, 7 years of famine. He went, he got his dad, he got, Pop, bring everything associated with you. Because ugly days are coming ahead. And can you imagine? Can you imagine? I mean, and again, Israel loved his sons. Israel loved his sons. But remember, before he passed, he asked for an audience. Well, he didn't ask. He demanded an audience with each one of his boys. He gave them the good, he gave them the bad, he gave them the ugly. They had, and it really wasn't a conversation. He did most of the talking. And even in the monologue, because it really wasn't a whole lot of, I don't think they had a whole lot of back and forth with their dad at that portion. They listened. And even when he said something that may have hurt their feelings, they still listened. And they knew it would be in their best interest to attempt to correct whatever deficiencies he brought out. Because as it is, a lot of times in our lives with the Most High, sometimes he'll say, well, Barry, if you keep this up, this is going to happen. So if I don't want this to happen, I need to change my walk, change my direction. In his mercy, in his grace, he gives us, he says, okay, you can do this or you can do that. If you do this, this ain't going to feel so good. If you do that, you'll be all right. Not that life's not going to ever be a bed of roses. Every male born, we're going to work by the sweat of our brow till we get out of here. If you can show me in the Bible where he said, okay, what I said to Adam don't apply to you, show it to me. What did he say? I'm God, I change not. Of course, now, society is trying to say a lot of stuff. They're trying to make white, black, white, purple, yellow. It's crazy. Confused people are trying to run the world. I mean, it is. Listen. Chaos is on the rise. And I mean, the sad thing about it, those sick people really think, I guess, they're doing something. Some of them might think they're doing something noble. I even hear some of them say as if the Most High himself set this up this way. And I'm like, man, I mean, they must be eating Fruit Loops for breakfast. I mean, it's almost an abomination coming out of some of their mouths with the stuff that they're saying. And I'm like, wow, oh my gosh. Mm, mm, mm. Mm. You meant to do me harm, but God meant it for good, so that it would come about as it is today, with many people's lives being saved. So don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones. In this way, he comforted them, speaking kindly to them. Now, again, like I said, earlier, and again, I'm not throwing shade, and I'm not passing judgment. We reading about Joseph. He ain't reading about me. So, don't read into more than what I'm saying. Joseph irritated his brothers. His brothers irritated him a different way. But he wasn't, listen, I shared with you, he was so excited, he shared a lot with his dad. And his father would, and I'm paraphrasing here, he would say, hey, that's nice, son. Let's just keep this between us. But you know how we are. A lot of times, saints, sometimes we might think we've been overlooked. And now I'm talking about church family. Sometimes people might think, well, I've been here for whatever, and they don't recognize who I am. Let me say this. Yeah, they might recognize exactly who you are. Now, we say a lot of times, and I remember my dad used to always say this, especially sometime in staff meetings, because we would get in there with our ideas, and he would let everybody, see, that was a thing he would do. He'll let you hang yourself. And a lot of people, some never even knew what happened. But the Most High is that way with us too. And I'm not saying that he's on par. Please don't read more into that either. I long for the day when I can just speak freely and in love. A lot of us want to be right. And sometimes you can be right to a fault. And a lot of us have ideas and this and that, especially when it comes to programs and things of that nature. And don't ever take your eye off of what's important. What's more important than anything is that we learn how to follow his instructions. We learn how to do things in his order and tell society to take a long walk off the pier. Stop trying to bring that stuff in here, in any other house of worship. I don't care what people say. Well, this works. It might work for a while. He said, so don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones. In this way, he comforted them, speaking kindly to them. See, and this is a key point that I want to bring out. See, a lot of times, and this is when I've tried to encourage you, and I didn't do a good job about it. I'm trying to convey to you, stop being so casual about things, because, see, it don't have to be the way it is. We are so used to when we flick the light on that the lights come on. We're so used to if we put the key in the door, we can get in. What happens if one day you come and put your key in and the lock's been changed? Oh, God won't let that happen. Yeah, he might. Not the God I serve. Well, the true and living will do it. Stop taking things for granted. Stop taking one another for granted. Don't do that. And I'm not fussing. I see a lot in this. Don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones. In this way, he comforted them, speaking kindly to them. Can you imagine how happy he was to be able to send for his father, send for his brothers, everything connected with him? They were living large. And not get overly puffed up as he had done in his youth. See, there was a lot of growth. For him to have that kind of favor with Pharaoh after he interpreted, yes. But Pharaoh gave him reign of the place. And see, Joseph just didn't get blessings for himself. Everybody benefited because he had a heart for everybody. Listen. Look at this thing, folks. This is what I'm saying. See, whatever mold we have shaped for ourselves, because, a lot of us tell, well, I just do this and I just do that. Listen, in following instructions, you got to be able to do whatever the instructions say. If you're going to follow them all the way. I mean, what are we? Well, I'll do this, I'll do that. I ain't doing that. I'll do this, I'll do that. I'm not doing that. Well, that's really not my thing. Think about who you telling this really ain't your thing. And see, that's how we start wanting to do what somebody else is doing, which the Most High didn't call you to do. Whoever he got there, that's who he put there. Well, I don't know why they don't recognize my brilliance and my talent. And maybe you have none. Or maybe you have it, but it's not called for. See, something else the real Pastor Green once shared after all of the know-it-alls got through talking noise. He said, listen, it's not that important that you be right. He used to say it's more important that you be righteous. See, if a Mack truck is coming down the street and they run a red light, and I say, well, the light green, I got the right of way, I'd be a fool. Yes, I was right, but now I'm dead right. Joseph says, in this way he comforted them, speaking kindly to them. Because see, he loved them. Remember the thing when he was in there and he had fed them and everything? And see, and this is what I'm trying to convey to you also. See, there's a time where it's just a time for just family. Sometimes, folks, we need to know when to back off. See, but that comes from respecting boundaries, which sometimes we don't do very well. Because we think, because I'm the child of God, whatever I got to say or whatever I think will fix the situation, sometimes you make the situation worse. Which is why sometimes I tell you, stop coming in and quoting a bunch of scripture. I'm not against the word of God, I'm for it. But sometimes when people are in a real situation, they just need you to communicate with them. They're not interested in how much scripture you know. They were drawn to you because they thought you may have some words of wisdom for them. So don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones. In this way, he comforted them, speaking kindly to them. He forgave them for real. And he was he said, look, bruh. Because sometimes, I know sometimes family can ask a lot. Sometimes non-family. Sometimes non-family asks for more than family. And I know I'm not the only one that happened to. But see, folks, to get to that place, for a person to approach you, something had to happen over the course of time where they feel or they believed or they were encouraged to approach you. But again, I'm submitting to you, it's not because they think you know the Bible backwards and forward. It's because they have watched how you have tried to follow instructions. And they may say, I see this person might have a little wisdom about themselves. And even when it's raining, pouring in your life, you still seem to try to follow the instruction. And that's what will draw people to you. He said, bruh, listen. Basically, he was saying to him, look, I meant what I said. I meant what I said. See, sometimes, in friendships, I'm going to leave marriages alone. Even in friendships, real friendships, not politically correct friendships. And again, there's nothing wrong with acquaintances. But again, acquaintances are acquaintances. Real friends are real friends. I'm not saying anything is wrong with an acquaintance, but an acquaintance is an acquaintance. Sometimes we tend to want to lump. We too quickly sometimes make everybody family. That's a mistake. That's a mistake. Man, are you preaching, start fighting with everybody? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is in following the instructions and the directions, keep some of your powder dry. Every situation don't call for you to pull out all the stops because another situation may come. Even in giving help, be wise with that. Again, I'm not saying, please don't misunderstand. I'm not saying don't help people. But don't use all your resources. Somebody else may need help tomorrow. And you need to do a quick survey. And this is what I'm saying. Are they an acquaintance? Are they a friend? Are they family? See, all of these are different. They're different. Yes, I know. They're all children of the Most High. I know all of that. You want a friend? Show yourself to be friendly. You want family? Then be family back. Let me say this too. And I'm going to say this, and please don't take this the wrong way. Even in churches, churches have friends of the church. They're not necessarily a member. They may just be a friend. And that's okay. You know, the Baptists always say the doors of the church are open, you know. But then there are some, they're members. And so membership means different things to different people. Because, see, some people change membership like they do their underwear. You know, but see, the system teaches that. Somebody could be a friend to this church and be a friend to somebody else's church as well. But when you start considering yourself a member, to what degree are you a member? Are you, hey, if I show up, you know, even in a family situation, there's more to belonging to a family than just having a group of people that'll come to your aid when you get in trouble. Let me ask you this way, and equate this to church. When you get in trouble, most of us look for our families to stand with us. Well, let me ask you, are you willing to stand with your family if they're in trouble? Or are you not even seen or heard from? Remember I used to ask the question, I asked it when both my folks was here, and I said, if you didn't get to do what you do, would you still come? That should be thought about. That should be thought about. Now, if you've always considered yourself, and this is another thing that church-going system people do. Most don't declare what they are. I know men always get blamed for not afraid to commit. Well, a lot of believers are afraid to commit to a particular body. When I was at, and I'm going to close with this, when I was at Lakewood, thank you. When I was at Lakewood for a long time, I was going there. Well, my dad was like, well, yeah, you need to go down there. And they got, good, I'm off. They got Pastor Osteen down there. I think you'll like that. Well, I moved down there in 81. It was 82, almost 83, before I started going there. Yeah. My dad was like, well, you'll like it down there. I waited almost a year. Now I was going around the